Hello, good evening, and thanks again for another edition of Ideas Exchange. You'll notice that over the past 3 weeks, I've deliberately been drawing your attention to things happening in our country today because of our actions and inaction. Today, our fourth is what I have observed to be a trend that the West has adopted. Countries we see as the beacon of democracy, which are forcing us to appreciate democracy, governance, rule of law, respect of the protecting the resources of the people. But some, and I want to use it as a preamble discussion today, because the most important thing we should do as a people is to realize that the 1992 Constitution was made for Ghanaians, not outsiders. It is the duty of Ghanaians to protect the letter of the 1992 Constitution to the extent that your future, my future, your survival, my survival, your right, my right, and the opportunities that should be available for your children, my children, and generations yet to be born. It's our responsibility collectively. Otherwise, we suffer the consequences. Now, the video I'm sharing is just reflecting the crisis in Sudan as we speak. They are fighting. And if you dig into the reasons why they are fighting today, it's just because of bad governance. And so you see from the video that the international media is busy covering the crisis in Uganda. And this crisis in Uganda has been going on for just 10 days. I remember April 15, 2023 was when the war broke. As we speak, about 600 people have been killed. We are told that 45,000 people have been wounded. Millions are displaced in Uganda. Some are struggling to get out of the country. There is no electricity, there's no power, there's shortage of food supply because the food intake communities have been blocked. It's like Ghana and we are in Accra. And food from Kumasi will be blocked because the Suhum stretch towards the other side of the eastern region towards the Ashanti region may not have access, or the eastern parts or the northern parts of the country has been blocked. So there you see from the pictures, Sudanese reduced to be refugees just within 10 days. Now, from the pictures, you notice that ordinary people have been internally displaced. The silent civil war, we are told, is breaking up in Sudan. This renewed conflict, according to analysts, was a result of very bad decisions by Omar al-Bashir, who was the president but was overthrown recently. You know, he ruled from 1993 to 2019. And take note, these scenes were carefully chosen to ongoing mess, polarization, the state of the country today, the concern you share, especially when those you join remain silent about what we should do as a people. And that is Sudan, which recently had come out of this painful experience and was supposed to be going on well because it's a country with rich resources. Oil is number one. My checks indicate that even agriculture is another key potential of that country. Now, while you are watching this video, I would share with you what has changed and why I think as a Ghanaian you should be interested in the bad governance today, and why you should join the call in condemning those who may be influenced or for political parochial reasons are quiet, and therefore impunity has become the rule of the day. So there you see in Sudan. Now, the next video I'll be showing shortly while this is rolling is something that is very difficult to watch. Viewer discretion is going to be your guide. More so, I got this video from a Ghanaian soldier in Sudan who's supposed to be on peacekeeping mission. As we speak, they are still praying that UN will facilitate their evacuation. And in that video that I'll be showing shortly, you see either rebels or soldiers beating human beings to pulp. And that is what you are seeing on the screen. And the video is quite long, but at a point I'll stop it, but let it roll briefly. They were crashing human beings' heads with stones. And this started just about 10 days ago. Please, just withdraw the video and let's continue, because it's quite disheartening. Maybe along the line, I will introduce it again. And while all this is going on, the West is celebrating how they have been able to successfully evacuate their citizens. And so watch this video. They sat on and watched countries in Africa deteriorate when they can speak out, will admit any other country to abuse the people, steal their resources, mismanage the economy, and Western countries will be quiet. They would have imposed sanctions or called out those governments or presidents. But while this was happening in Uganda, within 10 days, the Americans, the British, the Chinese, all of them have gone to evacuate their nationals, and they've left the Sudanese to their fate. In one of the videos, you see the US president and his team celebrating how they were able to go to Sudan and evacuate their people. And look at the comment on the screen, that they are proud that they did it successfully. And look at Joe Biden. I'm grateful for the unmatched skill of our resources. Please, if you can go back just briefly, just pause there and let us watch. I am not angry with Joe Biden, but my concern is that if we talk about democracy and good governance and the rule of law, and we look at the Western countries which are quick to speak to these issues, why will they keep quiet and allow government to abuse their people, steal their resources with impunity, and then stash these monies in their countries? And the worst they can do is that we have frozen their accounts, or we are going to impose sanctions on some individuals. Let the video roll. And so, as the conversation continues, you notice that they are happy. They were watching this live when the American Special Forces were in Sudan evacuating their people. And as the video rolls, you see the poor Sudanese left to their fate, poor Africans. They didn't know where to go. Ghana has managed to bring 82 people back to Ethiopia, I'm told, and they are facilitating the movement of others. But these are poor people. Like you, a Ghanaian today, witnessing I would have used nonsense going on in this country, but I've said it already. And you have chiefs, you have religious leaders, opinion leaders, people who matter, who have sat down quietly, and 7 years on, it appears the impunity is getting out of control. Tonight, our conversation is buttressed with this as a preamble for you to think twice that just 10 days ago, nobody thought that the tension that was brewing in Sudan would deteriorate. And that's what you are seeing on the screen. And in Ghana, by the day, security analysts are cautioning us, people are talking about the issues, and day by day, scandals are being unraveled, and we are sitting on the fence. This is how I want to introduce you to our program this evening. My guest is a diplomat, and even though this is not going to be our major topic, because we are going to talk about Ghana, it will be of interest to hear his concern about my worry about that so-called Geneva Convention, which appears to be a useless convention that does not reflect what it should mean for the human rights of average people, that you are a diplomat, so you don't comment about things happening in other people's countries. Yet, when they are killing themselves, Rwanda is just at the corner. My guest tonight is a former Ghana's High Commissioner to India, Chief Executive Officer of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority, a former Chief of Staff to the General Manager Operations, SNET, a former student leader, president of the Student Representative Council. I never knew this till I was digging his background. A former mayor of Cape Coast, Mukrumini Gwenyi, Deputy Minister for Environment, Science and Technology, a lawyer, a traditional ruler whose true name is Nana Berima Atapenyin. And of course, his educational background I'll share later. He holds an executive master's in business administration, BSc banking, finance, project management, BSc banking and finance, senior management course in public administration. It's no person, I'm sure just before I wrapped up, many people know the Besiana Mebabe Inama. It's called Sampi Yale. Ambassador Sampi Yale is my guest tonight. Ambassador, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'm a bit emotional because the way I saw the West go in for their nationals and they are celebrating the peaceful nature in which they were able to evacuate them, and nobody seems to care about the plight of the average poor who have nothing to have been the reason to suffer, but are now the victims of abuse to the extreme. When you watch the videos I was sharing, and the chronology of the narrative, what was going through your mind?
Well, Eric, as a practitioner, my only conclusion is that that is the result of African leaders' stupidity. That is the result of the stupidity of African leaders. We have always played the second fiddle and have this mentality of some Western gods that have to come to our aid all the time. So you see, at the United Nations, we are the biggest bloc that if we take a decision that today we don't support anything, the United Nations cannot work. But what happens? Since the United Nations was established, Africa has never had a representative in the Security Council. You don't have a permanent representative. All right? We are not even members of the inner core of committees. We just
Mugabe spoke about it some time ago.
Yes, we just come to the plenaries and make and come back. And African leaders going to the conferences go with so huge entourages, big. And what are they going to do? Just to go and spend money and time. But calculate, just watch out. All the conferences we have attended, what have you brought? I remember when I was the Deputy Minister for Environment, and I was attending the climate change conference in Paris. Rollins called me and said, look, if you go and don't bring anything, that will be the last time environment is traveling. So when I went, I was keen in getting something back home. I got there and all I was looking for, what can we bring home? And that is how we brought the HCF carbon, the fridges. That's how we brought it. And the EPA implemented it, believing that after that, Ghana would have moved from those fridges. But at least we are proud to say that we brought something. We also brought this idea that EPA should not be an agency. It should be an authority. So I picked from a friend, the friend I won't mention his name, but he rose to become the German Vice Chancellor, Angelina.
Yeah.
I picked something from Eastern Germany. And that what they have done was to convert their EPA into a top-notch ministry. You understand what I'm saying? So you will know that during Amakunyama's time, environment was very, very key. So, you know, everything you do, you plan, have a vision, and go for it.
It will feature in our conversation along the line. But I raised this in my preamble. And while the discussion is ongoing, for those who may have joined us at this hour, my guest is Ambassador Sampi Yale. The topic I chose was very careful. I said bad governance.
I'm coming to that.
Diplomatic complicity and the consequences. And my question, and while we are having the conversation, please, let's go back to the earlier videos and be rolling them at your discretion so that people can appreciate what should be of interest to you as a Ghanaian if you reflect on how polarized the country is today and where we are. EU will not tolerate any country within those blocks to do an inch of what we are witnessing in Ghana and by extension, some African countries. What really Is it,
Eric,
a proxy war in disguise, or what is really happening?
Eric, you have to understand something, that the West does not owe you anything. The West, they don't owe you anything. In fact, the West always want to see Africa in a bad state so that we can always go back to them in the form of looking for loans from the IMF, in the form of looking, like we are saying, crying for help. That's what the West has set our system to be. In the Berlin conference that divided Africa, they were not dividing it for the development of Africa. They were sharing Africa as a resource.
A
commodity. You understand? I have told you that it is the stupidity of and bad governance that have brought us this far. Can I explain why? Look at Rwanda. They went through a long session of war, but then they got the realization that, no, enough is enough. Let us build our own country, not depend on any country. We'll take the best from each country, but we will not be dependent on any country. Now you see Rwanda. You see it. You see Namibia. So it is not an open and closed situation. Those governments that have been sensible, those governments that have been rational, those governments that have seen their people as the reason why they should be in government, have done something different. Right? There are other governments that have also thought that, yes, this is a chance for me to loot the resources of this country. And therefore, they do everything to suppress the very people that they claim to be serving. Now, Africa is in a big dilemma because of the importation of what you call Western democracy. We forget to understand that the tenets of what causes that democracy to work have not been established here. The pillars have not been established here. The only thing that we have taken on is the constitution and the election, 4-year election. Apart from that, there's nothing democratic of any African state.
See, there is a missing link, and quickly we'll move away from the Sudan issues and come home. That is where we are coming towards. I was a young boy at the secondary school in the 80s. Around 87, 88, 89, when I was leaving secondary school at that time, I heard a military leader at the time whose focus was encouraging the people to appreciate that the power belongs to them. Throughout 92, 2000, 2004, I observed that kind of active grassroots enthusiasm among the people, the youth particularly, who were actively interested in governance issues.
If you had allowed me to develop my point, Eric, you would have understood
go ahead.
that this has been a chain of reactions. Now you would see that in some African countries, the little spark, that's war. You understand? Something small, even though we don't exonerate ourselves from this issue, because we have had the Nanumba Kokuma war, a little thing sparked the war. There is something that put us together, knit us together as a country. And that is the foundation that was laid by Sergeant Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. You know, people don't know how Ghana was built. People don't know how Ghana was block by block. You know, we started with the Gold Coast. When we say Gold Coast, Accra, Cape Coast, Mankasim and the rest, those are the coastal belt. Then gradually, they brought in the Northern Province into the, until a war also defeated Ashanti and then they brought them. And then the Volta region by plebiscite they came. So Ghana was not one entity. You know, even countries that have been one entity from the beginning have had wars. I want you to appreciate that good leadership is part of the problem, a part of the solution. What did Kwame Nkrumah do? He created the Ghanaian personality. Right? Osajifu said, look, education is the foundation of everything. So he built schools across. Eric, when you were in Cape Coast School, you know, you had a lot of Ghana boys.
Sure.
You had a lot of Northerners. You had a lot of whatever. All the tribes were in your section.
I learnt my 2x4 gun at Adesada College.
Adesada College.
Before I finished my O-levels,
yes,
I could speak, at least understood what people could say at the time.
So, Eric Ahianyo, if he's not a commander-in-chief of Ghana Armed Forces or a police chief commander, will not arm one tribe against the other. Because whatever it is, he has his classmates somewhere. Now, Nkrumah also promoted intermarriages. Eric, these are the two basic things that have held our foundations together. Are you following what I'm saying?
Sure.
Now, future government added on or subtracted. What you were talking about, Rawlings, was that he met a situation of hopelessness. There was nothing in Ghana. And therefore, he tried to galvanize the spirit of the people to do whatever we have to do to save this country. Never mind what other people say, but that was something that I participated and I know what I'm talking about. You know, because, Eric, at your Cape Coast, in your area there, I remember there was a standing pipe.
Right.
Which was constructed by your own people.
Sure.
Kawane Paulo, there was also one. Makano, we constructed it. And we were always saying that power to the people, development by ourselves. As soon as the revolution finished, they were talking about, we are looking for development partners. The white men are not here to develop you.
If you're not ready to develop yourself.
Yes.
Mr. Sampiale, I want you to stop it there and let's now move on to other related topics. Now, you made reference to the need for our country to stand as a whole. There is a potential threat. I've spoken to many security analysts, and they say there is present danger ahead of 2024. Yeah. While we are walking out of the Sudan crisis, there's an issue that can trigger chaos. Just recently, the NDC petitioned the Council of State. That petition was against appointment to the Electoral Commission. They copied the President, the Chairman of the Peace Council, the Chairman of the Electoral Commission, the European Union, the African Union, the Cali Bishops Council, the Christian Council, and the Embassy of the USA. It's over a week now. There's no word anywhere about any response officially from any of these. What does this signal?
Eric, let me be very frank and brutally frank. The real threat of our security is Nana Akufo-Addo. The real threat of our existence as a country is Nana Akufo-Addo. One, because of his personal attributes. You know, if you have a president that continuously say, "Yen and a wong," one way Omar say, "They are Sabalant and Tobias." The president consistently divides us into NPP and NDC.
But that's the reality.
Yes, but that is one source that can create the problem we are trying to avoid now. All right? The president is bringing policies that does not sit and seeks our collective responses. Whatever they want to do it, no matter what. They can even deploy soldiers to go and kill innocent Ghanaians that are going to vote. And the last time I checked, one of the pillars of democracy is voting. And that the Constitution ensures that any child 18 years of sound mind can vote. Now, if you put in impediments into the way of an 18-year-old boy or girl who has qualified to register, but because he's from Cape Coast or from voter, and you think that is not your stronghold, the EC, the Ghana Card people, whatever, NIA, should find ways of preventing the people from voting. It is not gunpowder. It is not gunpowder. You run the economy and capsize it upside down. You see a boat capsized. We don't have economy now. Our economy is capsized because the last time I checked, the rating agencies, they have further downgraded Ghana. The president had run this economy, which was $75 billion worth of economy from Mahama's time, and now we are begging for $3 billion. Are you following my argument? Now, one man had pokasi and one so hen. In Suko Poko by anybody. We've run an economy, 75 billion, destroyed it. Now we are running after 3 billion. And the 3 billion, you see what annoys me? When Mahama was faced with this situation, he brought in local ingenuities, local people, local technical people are the same chief. Now, Oforiatta go to rent about 3 other companies, European companies. They are charging us dollars as his advisors.
To the IMF.
To the IMF program. And this 3 billion is being touted as if that is going to solve all our problems, like they did with the E-levy. This government has run very reckless programs, and that is why I think that Akufo-Addo's government is the major threat to our security. Because look, you are running a program which says that don't employ any young person for the period of the program. Now, your son finishes Legon. He's at home. For the last 3 years, he's at home. His sister also finishes Kivas. He also comes home. His third brother is about to finish tech. They are all coming home. Is it not frustrating? Eric, is it not frustrating? And as if that was not enough, you see the opulence of our president. You see the impunity of government officials.